What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and before we get started talking about the article, which is basically an interview with Chris Cox of the Hasbro CEO about what to expect post 50th anniversary for D&D, I just want to take some time real quick to apologize for the lack of consistent videos here. There's post-con recovery, there was a bunch of storms and night shift work. I was definitely feeling a little bit off for a bit there. We had an earthquake today. It's been a wild couple of weeks. But I have a lot of content I want to roll into in the future, including stuff like building this Lego set on stream and other things like that. But I just wanted to apologize and say I've got a bunch of other boxes and stuff over here we got to get through and a bunch of really awesome content coming in the near future. So be on the lookout for that. That being said, let's go ahead and dive into the topic of today's video, Hasbro CEO on the future of D&D after the 50th anniversary. All right, so D&D turns 50 this year, and it says, this is from Chris Cox, if you look at Dungeons & Dragons, if you look at our board games, more people are playing these games than ever before. Our satisfaction rates, the happiness that players have, are higher than ever. I can't speak to that. I don't have data to support that. We do know things like Balers Gate and other licensed products have really skyrocketed in popularity. And we are just basically a little bit more than a year post the OGL, where obviously we started off with a pretty rough 2023, and there were definitely some big missteps, some small missteps, and then some even bigger missteps as time went on through 2023. A lot of the things that WotC and the Dungeons & Dragons team have been doing have been kind of turning that coaster on the uptick. However, this is Hasbro. Chris Cox is, the CEO of Hasbro. So he's speaking kind of holistically to the entirety of the company, but obviously focuses a little bit on D&D as well in these discussions. Mostly they're calling it a lot about games, right? Talking about games, which I guess falls under tabletop, board, Magic the Gathering, things like that. But again, I don't know if their satisfaction rates have been higher than ever. I feel like probably prior to the OGL, they were riding pretty high, and then I feel like you had a tank, and you're making your way back up, but higher than ever seems like an overstatement. But anyway, the company can point to the digital D&D adaptation Balers Gate 3, which, could be the higher than ever satisfaction, right? Balers Gate 3 took the world by storm. It swept basically every award show it's been at. It's absolutely in my top 10 favorite games of all time as it stands right now. And, that is definitely saying something because a lot of my favorite games are much, much older. Balers Gate 3 really did a lot for D&D, for the CRPG space, obviously for Larian Studios, and to, obviously because of licensing to Wizards of the Coast, D&D, and Hasbro as a whole. Last year, Hasbro also weathered backlash over a leaked, then dropped change to its fan licensing agreement and a disappointing box office for the acclaimed movie D&D Honor Among Thieves. I'll talk about this till the cows come home, but yes, D&D Honor Among Thieves unfortunately didn't do well at the box office, even though it's a fantastic film, and everybody I talk to really likes it. Whether it was the lack of good marketing, whether it was the timing of the release, I don't know. It should have done better, and I do hope it gets a sequel and gets the opportunity to try to maybe make some of that back. Then came the layoffs just before Christmas. Hasbro slashed more than 1,000 jobs mid-December, mostly from its ailing toy brands, but D&D and Magic the Gathering also got the axe, which is true, right? We thought initially that it wasn't going to really affect WotC. It was going to be just primarily Hasbro and specifically focusing on the toy market. Turns out, again, it did affect Wizards of the Coast in both the D&D and the Magic the Gathering side. It says, meanwhile, the company faces burgeoning competition. Critical Role, the media franchise spawned from live D&D broadcasts, has started to produce rival tabletop gaming systems. By the way, yes, Daggerheart coverage is coming. It's just something I haven't had time to sit down and really read through, but I will make videos on it, I promise. Also, I feel like not necessarily Critical Role. I feel like they were going to make their own system at some point anyway, but the OGL led to a lot of companies and other people making their own RPG systems. It's because of the OGL. A lot of people maybe they were looking to branch out or change, but a lot of them were content to just create content, third-party content for 5th edition. It's led to the change of a lot of this, and it's because of the OGL. So they kind of did that to themselves. Online markets like Drive-Thru RPG features dozens of alternative role-playing games, which often find champions and popular YouTubers. So I wonder what this link is. Click this popular YouTubers. Who does this take us to? Just curious, is this Drive-Thru RPG? Oh, Quinn's Quest. Okay. Want a new RPG? Try these. It makes sense. But despite pessimism from some fans on social media, Cox sees a sparkling future for D&D and Hasbro's gaming properties. I've been playing D&D since '83. I've been playing Magic since '95. We don't think about it just as a short-term sugar high. We think about this as stewards of the brands who come to it, not just as business people or designers, but as fans of these brands. And we want to pass the torch to new generations of fans even brighter than we found it. Hasbro's licensed mobile game Monopoly Go earned $2 billion. That seems wild to me. Like, I mean, you know, who knows, right? I don't know anybody that plays Monopoly Go. I've only, like, seen it as ads before videos. And I almost thought it was almost like memeable, this Monopoly Go. But apparently it's earned $2 billion since it launched last year, which is wild. I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to look into it. I'm guessing it's a microtransaction-heavy game. But with a name like Monopoly Go, that makes me think of things like Pokemon Go. I don't really know how it works, but whatever. Magic the Gathering made record profits in recent years, despite grumblings from longtime players. Hasbro also invested $1 billion into video game projects, which include the upcoming science fiction epic Exodus, starring Matthew McConaughey. I don't think I've heard anything about Exodus or the fact that Matthew McConaughey is attached. Have you guys heard of Exodus before? Am I just, like, in the dark on that one? I don't know. We've got one of the best gaming portfolios in the world, says Cox. I think when you talk to Hasbro's CEO on your second 100th anniversary, 99 years from now, I think they'll be talking about how we're still in toys and we're still in games, and how we're talking about the next generation of existing technologies or play patterns that we can be innovating on. That's certainly what we're trying to build for now, and I think I'm confident we'll be building for it in the future as well. It's hard to say. We might be in a completely digital world. I don't know if we'll be doing traditional toys in 100 years from now, but who knows? All right, 5 questions. Can you explain the mass layoffs last year and why certain jobs were affected? Great question, by the way, whoever asked this. We've been going through a turnaround. Oh, this is also, by the way, I'll just warn you, this is going to be a very corporatized answer, so you're not really going to get any super insightful things here, but I'll read it anyway. We've been going through a turnaround for the last couple of years, particularly in our toy business, making these tough trade-offs around how we preserve our cost base, drive our growth, and think about where we want to go in the future of the company. They're always hard, especially when they affect people we work with who are friends, colleagues, and loyal to the company. We had to make the tough decision to let some people go at the end of the year. That overwhelmingly affected our toy business and kind of like the corporate services that help support it. It did have a smaller impact on our games business, but was for different reasons inside of toys. It really was driving the turnaround inside. It really was around driving this turnaround inside of games. It was more around just kind of changing priorities in a rapidly growing and developing business, because games has been a business that's been growing for us for the last 15 years and represents a major investment for us. And we think it's going to be a major grower for us in the future. This isn't really a shocker. We've kind of seen this, right? But it also, I think the pandemic led to a lot of this, right? There was a big surge in traditional physical toys during the pandemic, as many people were having children or had young children during the pandemic and needed a means to keep them occupied or entertained while they were all at home. Some people working from home, some people just stuck at home in general. So physical toys got a big surge in 2020 and probably into 2021, maybe into 2022 as well. So they had this big surge in physical toys. Obviously, that didn't keep up. And then overall, the general downturn of physical toys as a medium has definitely happened. And I do think we have seen this sort of shift more towards games over physical traditional toys. But again, it doesn't really tell us too much. It's just a very corporate style answer. What is it that's more challenging about the toy side that you're pivoting more to games and digital sales? We've got great creative teams. We've got some iconic brands that people literally have grown up with for the last 100 years. It's more of an industry thing. Games have been growing at mid to high single digits for the last decade. Toys have been growing more like a single digit basis for the last 10, 20 years. A lot of that has to do with birth rates and kind of like the changing nature of play. Increasingly, people are playing at older and older ages. They're playing well into adulthood, but they're shifting to more games at earlier and earlier ages, both tabletop and digital. So I think what they're saying is kind of this sort of what we're seeing is a lot like our generation and mine, to the folks a little bit earlier than mine, and obviously going forward, people are playing games much more into their adulthood, but they're also, because games are so important to them, are also bringing in the younger generation at an earlier time. So games are more important in getting more play than traditional toys, action figures, and the like. We played board games, obviously when I was younger, in video games, but video games weren't as enthralling as they are nowadays. And board games were fun, and you play like a kind of once off and then done. But I probably spent a lot more time playing with Legos and action figures and things like that. Whereas now, like my kids want to play Dungeons and Dragons because they see, obviously there's some degree because of what I do, but they're more interested in that and playing games at a younger age than probably I was at their age. A number of fans have said they were outraged when a leaked corporate document, this is a good one, came out that would have taken some royalty money from individual creators who make content of their own for the game, say a new monster or new world. Hasbro walked back the plan, but some fans are still unhappy with the direction the game is going. How do you make sure to win them back? We take a very big tent approach to how we manage the brands and how we think about our fandom. At the end of the day, we try to think about things not just around who's posting online or who's posting videos associated with the brands, but also who's just playing them around kitchen tables or in game stores around the world. I think social media is wonderful. It's a very powerful marketing vehicle for us. It's a great way for us to connect with our fans and connect with influencers, but you also have to take a really broad sampling of players' opinions. If you look at the net for satisfaction of any kind of loyalty or satisfaction ratings, they're generally up. We make mistakes. We've had products that haven't done as well. We have made some decisions that we've had, in some cases, quickly walked back. And I think it's the strength of the game that we're as connected to our community as we are. And we empower our teams to make decisions and to be agile and to learn from them. D&D, it's one of the most popular open game licenses in the history of gaming. It's got a vibrant creator community that we value a great deal. We continue to work with those creators. We continue to work with those small publishers. We continue to work with those streamers to make the game as big as that's. Sure, if you say so. I don't think you're working that much with small publishers and streamers to make it as popular as it is. I think you fucked up. We called you out on it. We hit you where it hurt in your wallet, and you had to walk it back. And you're now on the apology tour. But they're obviously not going to admit to defeat or anything like this here. Magic the Gathering has Hasbro's first billion-dollar brand. The company is seeking to steer towards more casual players by printing and putting out more cards for people to play. But Bank of America briefly downgraded the company's stock in response, saying Hasbro was killing the golden goose, flooding the market. Is that a potential trade-off here? Great questions. I think it's also important to say a couple of months after Bank of America gave us that rating, they actually raised us back up to a buy. I think what we've done with Magic over the last 5 or 6 years is we've tripled the size of the game. We've significantly expanded the overall player base, and I've done that by thinking expansively about who plays it or who could play it. Most video games, particularly most kinds for hardcore strategy games, have maybe 10 or 15% of their player base that identify as non-male. For Magic, it's more like 35% of players identify as non-male. For Dungeons and Dragons, it's closer to 45%. We're very proud of the diversity and the focus on all players of all different stripes who play the game. We've tried very hard to figure out different modes to play it, making it more social and making it more casual in nature while still offering a great depth of play for competitive and highly strategic players. And then we've also done a really good job of thinking how we could make it more collectible. And as a result, our hobby stores, who are the primary people who sell the game, there are about 10,000 of them around the world who sell it. They've never been more successful with that. And those are small, medium-sized businesses that are usually doing $200,000 or $300,000 of business a year. And our larger vendors have also done really well, like we've grown across. They just basically diverted that question entirely. And we're like, yeah, we got really good diversity, which is fine, right? They have done that. They've added a lot more people to the game. Obviously, the tie-in marketing with all of the different things, Jurassic Park, Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings, that's all done very well to increase the popularity of the game. But all right. Hasbro has also done as a video game coming out starring Matthew McConaughey after the Dungeons and Dragons movie did only okay. But is this where you're headed? Not so much Hollywood movies, but blockbuster games? I think it's all of the above. We continue to invest in entertainment. We have a pretty significant team there, and we have some great Hollywood movies and TV shows in development or already produced. Transformers 1 will be a major animated theatrical event later this year. I haven't even heard about that. Looking at the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron. All right, you got me. I'm interested. Video games are obviously a huge form of entertainment. I think more and more they're dominating younger viewers and younger players' favorite brands. I think you see the success of video games with things like the Super Mario movie last year, or how games are starting to transcend and drive multi-generational play. So certainly we see that we're investing accordingly. We continue to invest behind entertainment. We are investing more and more in digital, and when we've got our great kind of physical play portfolio of iconic games and toys. So I'm going to say a little bit of a clickbait title here. Future of Dungeons and Dragons after the 50th anniversary. Doesn't really talk about that at all. Just talks a lot about how they're going to do a lot of digital gaming. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this. I do feel like that article was written in such a way. They asked some good, hard-hitting questions. Unfortunately, they got very corporate speak answers, which is probably what I expect. But either way, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll see you all next time.